Jackie, and I am here with Gus Baldwin. How you doing today?
I'm all right. Yeah, just having a chill
Happy,
Sunday.
yeah,
Yeah,
happy Halloween week. Are you someone who likes to give out candy or dress up?
kind of neither. I'm not a big Halloween guy, honestly. Which is a bummer to some of my friends. But yeah, I've never been a big Halloween guy. I think it's fun, but I think also like the past 5 years, it's always been the same weekend as Levitation Festival in Austin, which I work at. So I've always just been at work on Halloween for the past few years. So who knows? Maybe this year I'll actually dress up and do something.
I was gonna say, to be fair, then that takes you're kind of off the hook. Then if you have to
Yeah,
work, you don't get to like get excited because you're not allowed to. So that's
yeah, exactly.
fine. You just released your full length self-titled debut.
Mhm.
Which song do you think expresses the whole album's kind of message best?
I don't know. I think if you had to like pick an overall like what's the basis of the record, I think the song Happy Mondays, maybe the second to last track, because that was probably the song first written for the record, but at the time I wrote it, it wasn't intended for a record or anything. Like I wrote it, the first inception of that song was in 2019 when I was like 20 years old and was playing in another band and living in another city. And it's kind of sat around for a few years, and then lockdown happened, and I got the chance to actually record it, make like a recording by myself. And I think it was during that period that I started getting really into recording myself at home, which I'd always kind of done, but not like I guess starting to do it seriously and more consistently. And that's what led into doing my first solo record, or I guess it was an EP. This is the first full length, and then into this. So like I guess that was, without knowing it, the first song I wrote for myself as a solo artist.
You just didn't know it yet.
Yeah, but it also has, like it's a song with delicate, quiet parts. It's almost like two songs within a song to me, where you have like this loud part, and then in the middle there's this quiet part, and then it goes back to the loud. So I really like that, and I think lyrically it kind of captures the themes that I was talking about experiencing in my life at the time of writing most of these songs.
Who or what influenced your songwriting?
Well, there's like the obvious people like you love, like other musicians, but I think more than that, like this record, that the songs were more influenced by people I knew, I guess experiences I'd had. So, um, yeah, I think almost every song in a way is about someone I know, or about, something I witnessed or experienced. But then at the end of the day too, you also have like your heroes like Ray Davies of the Kinks and stuff like that, which I would never compare myself to because I think he's the best of all time and also sounds completely different. I wish I sounded more like him, but I don't.
Is there a lyric that you're particularly proud of?
One thing. I'm gonna try to think of every lyric on the album in the next 10 seconds. The first one that comes to mind is jealousy's for cowards, but the cowards always win.
Ooh, that's a
Yeah,
good choice. I like that. I
yeah, I
like
like
that
that
a
one.
lot. You're from Austin, correct?
Yeah, I grew up in Dallas, Texas, so I'm a Texan boy, but I've been living in Austin for a while now.
And Austin is a ginormous music city.
Mhm.
How has either Austin or Texas in general haven't had an influence on your sound?
Um, I think more so in Texas. Like I noticed this when I um was still living in Dallas in high school, and like different bands I was in. Dallas wasn't a huge music community, but it was still a major city, so you had a lot of bands coming through and touring, and so there was a lot of opening slots if you were a band in Dallas. And they always told us that like Texas bands were heavy. Like and even like the not like, you know, like heavy as in like your traditional terms of heavy music, but just heavy kind of maybe thematically or just intensity wise. And it was funny, like in my mind, this record uh was like a chill record to me. You know, like I was like, yeah, I can't wait to put out like my chill, like songwritery record. And then I hadn't listened to it. I got the records back and I put it on. I was like, oh, this is just a rock and roll, like loud rock and roll record. So maybe there's something there. In Austin specifically, I don't know. I love being here. The community is amazing. I mean, I'm biased because they're all my friends, but the fact that we're all friends, I think, for the most part, says something. Because I know in a lot of cities and a lot of music communities in at least this country that I've been around, it's not necessarily the case, where it doesn't feel competitive here, which I love. It's very wholesome and encouraging or something, you know, when we see each other around, which I think that's what kind of breeds a good community. And I think it shows in the strength of all the Austin bands out there on the road right now, which is a lot of them, especially a lot of younger bands. It makes me proud to be from this community, and also lucky because, you know, I had to come into this and be accepted once, you know, when I moved here. So yeah, just grateful. And I guess that to answer the question, which was like, how does it influence the sound? Um, I don't really know, but I will say what I love about the community here is it's still very much, you know, rock and roll is cool here. Um, and that's not true about a lot of cities anymore. And I love that because I love rock and roll. It's what I know how to do.
That's very fair to say.
So I think yeah, like it's cool living in a town where it's like almost encouraged to play rock and roll or make a rock and roll record in 2025.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of your favorite local Austin music venues to play in?
Venues. Well, I'm biased because I work at Hotel Vegas, but um, we have played Hotel Vegas a million times, me and my band and other bands. They were the first venue like gave us a residency when we had just started. I had my first album release show there. So I love that place. And it really is like the inside stage in there is kind of like in Austin, like the spot you got to cut your teeth. And I just love playing that room. It's like where I love playing new stuff. And then Mohawk in Austin is also, it's my favorite venue to see a show, favorite venue to play a show. I was just a magical place. And played some of my favorite shows there ever. And it's also like I don't know, it feels like a treat when you get to play there. This is a bigger place, and you get like our friend Eden who does monitors. So you actually have like a monitor guy and stuff. So it's like you in a green room. So you're like, okay, hell yeah, gotta be on good behavior tonight.
The album itself kind of encompasses influences from a bunch of different genres. How do you go about creating modern sounds from those kind of classic influences?
I guess by accident, really. You know, as like my friend Christian from the Black Angels, who's kind of my boss, he always says this analogy of being a sponge or something where it's like he's like, I'm like a sponge, man, you know, I soak it all up and then you wring me out and then something comes out of that. And I really like when he says that because it is kind of true, you know. Some people say it's like a funnel. Like I think the way, I mean, I wouldn't really call my sounds modern from my opinion, but I'm glad that someone does. Because in my eyes, I'm just trying to make like a 60s record, but with, you know, I'm trying to make my guitar and drums and stuff sound like the 60s, but in 2025 it's hard to do, so it ends up sounding like something different. I guess that's how, is just by looking back, because I don't know, I have a problem where I get made fun of for being so out of touch with modern culture and modern music by my friends, because I really have, I know like a very slim bit of contemporary music, and I'm working on it. It's been something I've been actively trying to get back into. But so yeah, I'm just always trying to rip off sounds and techniques from 50 years ago.
Is there anything about your upbringing that kind of lent itself to being um, so sort of like preferential to the 60s or that variety of music?
um yeah, I guess like it would have to do with like my parents' record collection. You know, they were children of the 60s, so they had a great taste in music too, and tons of CDs and records. So I was like just kind of was raised on what they put me on. And you know, it was still the era of like, you know, going to the video store and renting a movie. And you know, my dad was really, yeah, I guess I liked music, so he would, you know, go rent me Stop Making Sense and The Kids Are All Right and like all the classic rock docs and stuff. You know, that kind of put me on of like that. But I think also too, like my mother was very like kind of anti-technology and TV, which at the time I hated because I was, you know, 10 and I just wanted to watch TV all the time. But you know, was pretty strict on like, you know, screen time for us when we were kids. And I think that maybe lends itself to, I guess, being forced to use your imagination as a child. And, you know, that's how I got into things like starting to learn how to record, you know, on my dad's iPad because I was like, well, I can't do anything else. I can read a book or I can play drums and figure out how to make them sound, you know, cool.
Speaking of making your album sound cool, your album was recorded on like a multi-track tape machine, correct? So
Yeah.
how do you think that added to the richness of the sound? Because I'm sure that was an intentional choice.
It is. Yeah. I try to always record in the analog realm. Not necessarily because I'm like a purist about it. I mean, I kind of am. I prefer it. I like the sound, but I really like the workflow of it. And that's something that anytime I've recorded digitally just goes out the window immediately. Where when you record analog, at least for me, you have to commit to what you do. There's no redoing thing. Or and if you're gonna redo it, you gotta redo it like, you know, do it all. So I like the fact that, you know, you're gonna play a performance and it is a real performance. And you know, at the end of it, you have to decide whether you want to go back and do it all over again or if that's good, you know. And a lot of times that means there are some mistakes in there, but overall, it has this feeling that fulfills the purpose that you want it to. And I also love the fact that, you know, because it took, you know, about a year and change to record this record. So I was recording it with my friend Ramiro at his place. And in between all the touring we were doing, and just general life stuff. You know, we would not record for 2 months sometimes, and then you know we'd come back, but everything was existing on these reels of tape, which I love because if I had, you know, been sent home with a Google Drive full of files after every session, I would have ended up hating every song halfway through making it. You know, because you'll just listen to them over and over and find problems. And I loved being able to go back to the studio and just turn on the machine and put the reel on and be like, oh, I forgot we did that. Like, or, and, you know, instead of like, you kind of have this image in your head of how the record sounds. And yeah, I think just that the analog, like that recording process lends itself to be more imaginative for me as well. Like, cause I know everyone, you know, finds their own way of recording and preferred. And I'm also just started recording another record in the digital world with my friend. So we'll see how that goes. So far, I don't like it, but I like the songs a lot. So hopefully that's what matters. But I can't speak enough for like if no one's ever tried recording in an analog way, I think it just for the songwriting process and the creative process, I think is a very healthy thing to try out. And through recording this record, I went and bought the exact same machine. So I have one here at my house now because I loved it so much.
So how do you translate that richness that comes across on the album when you play it live?
Um, well, I guess it's up to the band, really. I'm lucky that I have a very good band, um, and they're all way better than I am at playing each of their instruments. So I think, I mean, they all played on the album and here and there, but overall it was me kind of playing everything. But when we go live, David, my guitar player, is a better guitar player than me, so he can play the parts that I kind of sloppily jump through on these takes better. I mean, Lucas played bass on half the album, my bass player, and he did because when we first started the band and we were playing these songs live, I would bring in demos and then he would make a better bass line. I'd be like, all right, cool. So that's what it's going to be now. So yeah, and Trey, the drummer, same with him. Even though like as a drummer at heart, I wanted to play the drums on the record. He did play on one song, but we have a relationship, I think, at least to me, maybe he feels differently, where when it comes to the drumming on the songs, he knows how I would play it, but we're very different drummers, but with the same spirit and enthusiasm. We're a fan of a lot of the same things. So I love when he kind of takes what I would do, which is usually crazy maniacal style of drumming, and just refine it into like a very almost scientific, but still like energetic as hell. So yeah, credit to them for playing it live, but we haven't really played most of it live in a long time. And I mean, it was kind of the set when we started the band like 3 years ago. It was just the songs I had at the time. And now that it's finally coming out, we had to relearn all of them because we haven't played them for years. So it sounded great in rehearsals. I think it sounds better than it used to because we've gotten better at being a band in 3 years.
Well, speaking of your solo work and the sort of changes that you've gone through, how have things positively changed for you since going solo?
I mean, I'm the boss now, which is good. I can do whatever I want, which was a relief. And I never wanted to go solo. It was actually my current bandmates who were also my former bandmates who were the ones who kind of told me like, you got to do this. Like you need the band where you can be in charge and just do your thing your way, because I was never able to do that. And I never knew, I didn't think I wanted to. Because I think growing up, I never had a desire to really be a songwriter or a frontman. I was mostly a drummer, like until I moved to Austin. So I was like, I just want to be a drummer in a band or just be like a guitar player in the band, and not even the lead. I want to be the rhythm guitar player in the band. I want to be Malcolm Young and just like stand in the corner and just have a good time and have an easy job. But I started writing songs in my old band, but I was like, I personally didn't consider them to be very good. And I thought that the other songwriter, John, who was my partner in that band, was just like being like a nice older brother kind of, and being like, well, we'll do some of your songs too. Cause I was always like, it's all him, and to this day, I still only listen to his songs from that band. But I guess my bandmates thought that I needed to do something on my own. So I did. And I didn't want to do it. I wanted to put a name on it. But then I saw like it was really Ty Segall. I went to see him play an acoustic show in Austin, and it kind of blew my mind where I was like, oh, this guy can do whatever he wants. And being a fan of his, I'm like, oh, he has so many different projects, and by going under your name, you kind of have this freedom to make a punk record, but then go play an acoustic show and having these delicate songs. And I thought that was beautiful, because I think, especially with my old group, like when you have a name on something, it's easy to be put in a box. And that's what happened to our old group. We kind of got put in this psych rock box and then got tired of being a psych rock band. We're like, well, what do we do now? So I saw him play this solo gig, and I was like, I guess I'm going to do this. And with the idea that it's like, oh, I can kind of, if I get tired of something, I can do something else and it'll still be me, you know?
Well, as the reluctant front man, when you have new music out, how do you balance advertising that music and being authentic, especially when it comes to social media?
Um, it's a very good question. Because I don't know, I'm someone who's not very, I'm not a fan of social media, but I understand that I I kind of have to use it. But at the same time, I'm still reluctant. Like I don't have an Instagram for my band, and that's very on purpose. And I only use one social media. Because I'm like, I don't got the brain width to have more, you know? Um, I think it's more authentic in the way that it's just me and it's my personal Instagram, because that's the only social media I use. But at the same time, you know, I've gotten in arguments with people about this who want to, you know, do all these new things like collaborative posts and all of these weird, you know, hashtags, and all your weird social media algorithm booster games. I'm like, well, that's not me, and this is kind of just me on here. So I, you know, I don't want to do anything that isn't me or doesn't seem like my kind of person, because you know you can always tell when you know you have friends or fellow bands, you know, maybe a band you're a fan of who gets a social media manager or something like that. You can always tell it's not them, and it always rubs me the wrong way.
I think that's a good point, is that when it's not authentic, your actual fans can totally tell.
Yeah,
New
and as
person
a
might.
fan of music myself, I personally love when the people that I love don't give a shit about social media. That's attractive to me. And I think out of all like the contemporary people I did like growing up, they were very like, you know, whatever towards social media. And then the people who leaned in and tried to go viral or whatever, I found myself leaning away from. So I think it's a terrible thing. It's going to ruin the world, but it already kind of has. But I do like being able to tell people when I'm playing shows and when I put out music.
That's fair.
Yeah. But
Speaking
yeah, I always feel like when I'm typing out posts, I'm like, does this sound like cheesy? Like when I'm saying this, you know? Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Music is often there for us, like when people aren't, or when things are tough. If you're having a bad day, who are you pressing play on?
Oh, Neil
What is that?
Young, Neil Young. That's my emo music. That's my sad man music, but it's also my happy music, you know? Um, but he's my go-to sad guy is
That's so
Neil.
interesting that he's your happy guy and your sad
Yeah,
guy. 'Cause
dude, Neil's just the best. You know, you
I
can't.
don't disagree. I just think it's
No.
interesting because I feel like some people, when they're sad, they gravitate towards sad music. And other people, I feel like it's two camps. The other camp is I'm sad. I'm going to listen to like really fast paced music or
Yeah.
something to like try to pick myself up. You're just like, this is
Yeah.
what I go to because that's what I like.
Well, it's different. I'm like, I know, like when I'm really down, my favorite like depressed record is "Tonight's the Night," which is a depressing record. It makes me feel better, but you know. And then last week, it was a Sunday here. I was like, it was sunny and beautiful. I opened up my windows and I put on "Everyone Knows This Is Nowhere," and I was like, see, this is awesome. I got a smile on my face. And then yeah, you know, there's certain songs that I mean, you put on "Tell Me Why," like the first song on After the Gold Rush, and you're just immediately like, I don't know, it's almost like thinking about like the first person you ever kissed or something. Like it's just like this raw emotional feeling. You're just like, whoa, you know. So it's Neil's my guy. But I mean, tons of stuff. I don't know.
That's an excellent choice. No, that's totally fine. I like that for you, Neil Young has that sort of duality that he can be all the things for you. That's awesome.
Mhm.
So with new music out, what do the next couple of months look like for you and your band?
Um, go on tour this week. with Bass Drum of Death, which I'm very excited for. And then I don't know after that. We're going to come home and hopefully make a new record with the band. But I think, yeah, we're very, one track mind kind of people. So for me, it's always like, what's the next thing, especially with touring? Because like, not only with this band, but, touring has been my main job, like source of income as a tech and roadie for the past few years. So it's always like, what's the next thing I'm going for? When's the next flight I have booked? When's the next, time I'm leaving? But I think the two for us, this was, it happened to coincide with me putting out my new record, which is cool because I think it's the first time we've ever in my life like put out a record then gone on tour to promote the record. So I'm like, oh, this is what people actually do. Like every time I've gone on tour, it's always like, oh, a record came out like a year ago, but here we are. Or we actually ended up going on tour about a year ago, last December, to promote our record, which hadn't come out yet. We had 1 7-inch off the record. So that was interesting. But yeah, so that's cool. Like it actually feels like, oh, put out a record, go on tour. We're opening for Bass Drum of Death, who is a band that we grew up worshiping. I think on my Instagram I found a picture I took with John, the singer, when I was like 15, 16, after one of their shows. And when we met them last year, we opened for them, and just for like one show in Austin. And my friend Branson, who tours with me with the Black Angels on the road crew, he was doing lights for the show, and he had somehow found that photo of me and John from Bass Drum of Death and projected it on the screen behind us while we were playing. Which I did. I was so embarrassed because I was like, dude, you got to be cool. Like I worshiped these guys in high school, but I want them to be like my friend now, or like something like that. And he just did that. So I was like silent. I was like, well, I'm going to go home after the show. I'm going to sell my stupid fucking merch. And then I'm just going to go home and talk to nobody. But luckily they thought it was cool and they came and talked to us, which turned my night around. Cause I was genuinely like pissed off and embarrassed. And I was like, no one cares about what we do. But,
well, your listeners care what you do. You've
yeah.
got new music out, so stay tuned for much more from Gus Baldwin. This is Jackie, thanks to Chorus FM and In the Key of Change.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you so